Hey, Armand here with your forecast for November of 2022. I'll tell you what you should do. You should subscribe to this channel so that you can get weekly forecasts because with a month like November, there's too much happening to put it all in the month, and I have to leave a lot of stuff out. I'm doing this for your own good. I'm saying this for your own good because I don't get paid for doing this or anything like that. I'm just telling you, I'm going to have to leave a lot of stuff out. It's a very busy month. The whole trick to this month is to get through the first 10 days of it. That's the trick. Of course, the magician isn't telling us how the trick gets done, right? We have to figure that out for ourselves. And it could be a little bit of a challenge at some points in time, I gotta say. Well, we start the month with Mars retrograde. Now, Mars is retrograde from October 30th, so we're still feeling that Mars station energy very intensely as the month begins, as the month of November begins, and we're going to feel it all the way through January 12th. We're going to feel it all the way through a good part of January of 2023. Mars energy pulled inwards. We want to go forward. We want to do things, but it isn't a great time to initiate projects, particularly bad time to initiate litigation. Not that you would do that. It's not a good time to initiate litigation, lawsuits, things along those lines. It's also not a good time to begin a brand new exercise program. However, you can go back to the gym if you want. You can dust off your membership and go back to something you've done before. So you might feel the energy of like, gee, you know what I want to do? I want to go learn Aikido or Judo or something like that. Makes a lot of sense with Mars retrograde. Those are martial sports, but it's not a great time to do it. You're probably better off waiting until January. See if you still have the enthusiasm for it then. If you do, that'll be terrific. If not, well, then, well, I mean, I don't know. It wouldn't be bad if you just gave it a try, I guess, but you get the idea. All right, that's framing everything in November and December and most of January. Not a great time to start new projects. Doesn't mean we can't get things done. It just means that it's not a good time to start new projects. We can go back to things, we can complete things that are already underway, but it's not a good time to start things. There's a whole video on Mars retrograde that you can watch on this channel. So if you just look at the integral astrology button on the bottom there, the little link there, you hit it and you get all the videos and go find Mars retrograde and watch that. Anyways, why else is the beginning of November such a thing? It's because of the eclipse on November 8th. Now, this is some eclipse. It's a lunar eclipse. It's a lunar eclipse, but the moon is closely conjunct Uranus. Now, Uranus is a revolutionary planet. It is an explosive kind of energy. We're already feeling that full moon energy, that lunacy that comes with the full moon, and it's intensified by it being an eclipse, and it's right next to Uranus. Big deals over here. This is, of course, election day in the United States, and we're going to see some stuff coming out of that, I'm sure, because on top of all, not only is this energy very generalized and strong, the eclipse lines go down through the east coast of the United States, passing very close to Washington, D.C. They go through states like Georgia and North Carolina and New York and Pennsylvania, where there are very contentious elections happening. Very likely to see surprising results, shocking results. Of course, there's going to be contested results because you know how things are, but we're going to see some real churning stuff and maybe some stuff that goes on to the side of this as well. As my friend and colleague Adam Bernstein over at the Medium channel says, 16, this is happening at 16 degrees of Taurus, is the key for the Tower card in tarot, and boy, it looks a lot like that. Okay, we're in the midst of eclipse season, right? So that has that what I call the suspension bridge pattern, which is like, here's baseline. This is what baseline is like. And from the lunation before the first eclipse, this is like mid-October, tension kind of builds up to the first eclipse. That was a solar eclipse on October 25th. And then it never really dips down all that much. And then it gets to the next peak at November 8th. And then it kind of trails off after that. That is the pattern. Now, for most of us, this just means that we start feeling tense as we approach that first eclipse, and we stop feeling intense after the second eclipse. Right around those two eclipses, right at the pillars of the suspension bridge, we feel it most. Now, eclipses tell us what we need to pay attention to. When you think to yourself, oh my God, my career, oh my God, my relationship, oh my God, my finances, you're right in terms, this is something that you need to pay attention to. This is something that might need fixing. This is something that might need, well, it needs your attention. Let's just leave it at that. However, eclipses also blow things out of proportion. You're looking at them through a fisheye mirror, like a magnifying glass or a fisheye mirror or a magnifying glass. Things are blown out of proportion. So you don't really, it's not the disaster that you perceive it to be. Probably not the disaster that you perceive it to be. For some folks, if you happen to have something right around 16 months. Anyways, it's probably not the disaster that you perceive it to be, but it could be something. It is almost certainly something that needs attention. But you know what it is. When you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're like, that's the thing that needs attention. It's not as dire as it looks at 4 in the morning, but neither is it quite as okay as it might seem at 4:30 in the afternoon. And you got to pay attention to these things. Okay. Now, right after the eclipse, the sun will go on to square Saturn. That happens on the 11th. And what we have here is a shift in the energies between the sort of Uranian open explosion, but also a sense of possibility. That's the other thing that happens with the eclipse, a sense of possibility. Uranus always opens up that sense of possibility. Saturn comes along and offers one of two alternatives, and I'm sure folks will take, the one that is most appropriate to them. Either that high-flying eclipse energy hits a brick wall. That's not the good alternative. Or we look at all the possibilities and we pull out of them a practical, solid, grounded answer to things. Now, at the beginning of November, switching gears a little bit, at the beginning of November, we have Venus, partnership asteroid Juno, Mercury, and the Sun all making harmonious aspects with each other. Really good potential for relationship stuff. And I say relationship stuff. And then Venus goes on to oppose Uranus. Venus opposite Uranus, when it comes to relationship stuff, is very much about breaking through the mold, doing things a little bit differently, trying something new, maybe trying someone new, something like that. Just mixing things up a little bit. Importantly, Venus also has a lot to do with our financial markets and our values and valuables. So right on November 5th, this is like Friday, November 4th, coming into November 5th, we have this Uranian energy of multiple possibilities. And then Venus goes on, passes Uranus, and then winds up squaring Saturn. And again, either we hit a wall or we distill the solid, grounded possibilities out of things. Financially, markets in turmoil through the first week in November. Well, they've been in turmoil for some time. And when they're not in turmoil, they're just going down. But volatility strong through the very beginning of November. And then right around the eclipse, we start to get like a little bit of, this is where things are going. Good or not so good. And the same thing with relationship. We work on things with this, and then we open up possibilities, and then we make a decision. Things start to calm down after the eclipse. On the 16th of November, Venus starts the Sagittarian season off by jumping into Jupiter's home sign, and we get a little bit more of an upbeat vibe. It's really great for socializing through the first week in December. Plan your Christmas parties early. If you're having like an office party or something like that, plan it early this year. You're going to get a little bit more juice out of it earlier in December. Should be great for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Thanksgiving should be interesting anyway. And then coming forward a little bit from there, we have Mars will square Neptune on the 19th, right around the 19th. So take the 18th to the 20th. Mars Neptune is a kind of crusader energy. This is like getting swept up in the cause of the moment. We're going to do this thing, but it could be either ill-informed, it could be too impulsive, and there could be, because Gemini and Pisces, where Mars is in Gemini, Neptune is in Pisces. There could be a little bit of duplicity going on. So you could see some less than candid kind of actions going on around that time. Not long after, the sun comes into Sagittarius, and on the 23rd, we have the new moon in Sagittarius. Talk about an uplifting kind of energy. And 4 minutes later, 4 minutes of clock time later, Jupiter stations direct. Of course, we feel that Jupiter station throughout. So let's say the 22nd, the 23rd, the 24th, we're feeling the energy of a Jupiter station. Positive, good stuff, lots of, uplifting, we can do it, faith in the future kind of energy. That's supported by the Sagittarius and Jupiter's ruler Sagittarius. It's all kind of working out really well. And then we have to face the fact that Sagittarius also can have a sort of polarizing effect on things. And, this Jupiter, this upbeat, happy, go forward kind of energy, it works just as well if you're an asshole as if you're somebody who's a little bit more sincere, or if you're somebody who's a little bit more, you get your head on straight. Jupiter just, increases and builds things up. So, it works for everybody, or it happens to everybody, and it works for some of us. I would say, though, that as we end the month, we get some more positive energy for relationship. This is much more Venus working to pull out things that will work on a practical level. It's a little bit less up in the air than it was at the beginning of the month. And generally speaking, as we end the month, there's sort of a good feeling to things. Pallas Athene, the truth teller asteroid, stations to go retrograde in Cancer on the 30th, and that should pull people backwards a little bit. If the high-flying Sagittarius energy is a bit much for folks, then we're likely to see that there's going to be a little bit more of a turn towards clannishness, conservative, let's, at least for a couple of days, and that's in our public discourse. When it comes to public stuff, we're talking about the public discourse, not so much what's going to happen. Although that election thing is going to be pretty exciting to watch. Anyways, that's the basic thing. Get through the first 10 days of the month. Things are up in the air and feel a little bit nuts. Mid-month, only have to really pay a lot of attention to that 18th to 20th. That Mars Neptune square, by the way, something that came up around October 12th, middle of October, that area of time is likely to be revisited. Probably have to wait until March, when Mars goes direct and squares Neptune again, to find out how that's going to play out. But, keep it in mind, if something's been up in the air since March 12th, October 12th, you might get the next installment of it. And then as the month ends, hopefully most of us can just kind of have a little bit easier time. But do remember to pay attention to those things that you were so worried about during the eclipse, because they're not going away.